An amazing comeback from the Swans. Hamstring woes for both South Australian sides. And what is going wrong at Carlton? That and more as we take a look at the round so far. But Kane, we have to start at the Cattery.
Yeah, what a win it was. It was up there with the Crows, beating Sydney actually last Friday night as one of the wins of the season. But this performance here, when you think away from home without Buddy Franklin, they'd kick 5 goals to three-quarter time, yet the storm home was 7 in the last quarter to snatch victory pretty comfortably in the end. It was a surprise. The crowd was stunned, and it was their lesser lights that we will look at a little bit later on that did all the damage late in the game.
And that's the thing, isn't it? Being able to silence the crowd at the Cattery in the long run. It was quite a surprising comeback from them.
Yeah, no doubt. They've had their challenges as well, haven't they? Some personnel issues with no Tippett and no Reid, no Franklin there today. So I just wonder whether John Longmire's thinking now about different avenues to goal. They've been so reliant on Franklin, as we highlighted in the round so far last week. But this was how it was done. If you told me that these guys would kick you 7 goals in the last quarter, I would have laughed before the game. So Robbie Fox kicked 2, Hayward 2, the South Australian, Florent, Zach Jones and Ben Ronk on debut, kicking those 7 goals in the last quarter. They were the story of the day.
It really was terrific. And Josh Kennedy's contribution as well after a couple of quiet weeks.
Yeah, he's been flat for a fortnight. I reckon he's the most consistent player in the AFL over the last 5 years, Josh Kennedy. When you look at his best and fairest results at Sydney, he is an out-and-out star of the game, yet just 18 disposals and 13 last week in his last fortnight. He had 13 disposals in the last quarter, so he's had as many disposals today in the last quarter as what he did for the whole match last week. Add together the 17 contested possessions, I think it was 13 clearances, 9 inside 50s, and he was clearly the player of the day.
Is he in the Accord team of the week?
Lock him in.
Lock him in, there you go. There's some news for you. All right, there was some controversy at the Cattery, that is for sure. Let's take a look at this incident, which saw Jordan Murdoch reported for rough conduct on Isaac Heaney. But as you can see here, Kane, Murdoch has the footy. Yeah,
it wasn't even a free kick, was it? Let alone a report. That is just a good, genuine footy collision, which we love to see. Both players' eyes on the footy. You can see that. Murdoch's just gone to protect himself. Heaney's left himself open. He's come off second best, but can't believe Murdoch was reported for that, and I don't think his coach could either.
Let's hear from Chris Scott.
Well, I think it highlights the absurdity of matchday reports. It's just, to put the pressure on umpires to feel like they've got to intervene in split-second moments like that, I think is really unfair on them. It serves no purpose at all. I think the umpires would say it gives them an element of control. So if there's a bit of a melee, they can say that they've reported the player, which I think is highly questionable.
So to be absolutely clear, you'd like to see matchday reporting scrapped?
Yeah, and I think I'm in the majority of logical thinkers.
Kane, are you a logical thinker?
Well, it's hard to argue with that logic, isn't it? He makes a lot of sense, and perhaps we should listen to the coaches a little bit more often, because when they do speak logically like that and clinically like he did there, very hard to argue, so I can't see any reason to keep it in.
Not a deflection from the loss for him bringing that up?
No, I don't think so. I think he's clearly responding to a question. He wouldn't have brought that up if the question wasn't asked. Now, we don't get to hear the questions, unfortunately, but I'm sure it was a response to a question.
All right, let's take a look at what happened in Launceston. No real surprise here that the Hawks claimed victory over St Kilda.
Oh, I reckon it's a pretty good win from the Hawks. So they're missing some key personnel when Piopolo and Rioli, Sicily not there, probably their best backman this year. So it's a gutsy win. Look, they don't lose in Tasmania, do they? History would say very, very rarely. So a good performance. St Kilda are battling, which we're going to look at in a little bit of time. But to get 4 goals out of Isaac Smith, who plays on the wing, Gunston was good with his 3. Brewster's chipped in, having a very, very good year, Luke Bruce. So they'll get the win and move on. They're in a nice spot, the Hawks.
Are they a finals team?
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, I think, look, it's early days, isn't it? So we tend to make calls week to week. But right now you've got Richmond at the top. You've got Gold Coast, Brisbane, Carlton right down the bottom, and everyone else is a clear chance for the top 4 and top 8.
Now, let's take a look at this from Tim Membry as we switch across to the Saints. And was this the miss of the season?
Yeah, it's hard to believe. You stop the clock here and you say, what happens next? There is no one that would have said he misses that goal. Now, it's almost harder to miss that than it is kick it. And St Kilda's goal-kicking woes, well, for the last couple of years have been an absolute disaster. Let's take a look at their form this year. Factor in that they've played 4 games at Etihad Stadium, which is indoors, not a breath of wind. There wasn't a breath of wind there tonight. in Tasmania, yet they kicked 0-7 to start the game. They were 18th last year in the comp. They hired Ben Dixon as a goal-kicking coach. It's had no impact. When you look at some of those scores there, it is a major issue, not only for the Saints, but across the competition. And I'm not sure what they can do to address it. Clearly, it's inside their players' heads.
Well, the Saints clearly tried to address it in the off-season. As you say, they had Ben Dixon down there, and they were working very hard on it. It seemed to work in round one, and then something's gone wrong since.
Well, you got to assess how much time they're putting into it and what techniques they're using. Are they kicking under fatigue? Are they kicking under pressure as much as you can simulate at training? So they're all the types of things they'll be tossing around throughout the year and certainly this week.
Now, the Crows had a good win over Gold Coast, but the big story out of this match is their skipper, Taylor Walker. Speaking of goal kickers, he could potentially be out for a while. This is him leaving the ground in the second quarter, and he sought some treatment, or at least a look at his hamstring, and he did not return for the night.
Yeah, it doesn't look like a bad one, but any hamstring comes with some concern. And when you look at his preparation over the pre-season, he didn't do a lot of training, and he was rushed back in round 2. So I reckon they'll be pretty cautious. Look, it's not serious, as I said, so I don't think it's a 3 or 4 week one, just on the evidence there. So maybe 1 to 2 weeks. But Adelaide's history this year with hamstring injuries is frightening. This is the players that are currently or just have returned, as we see Matt Crouch on the injury list with hamstring injuries. Now, Daniel Talia admitted in the pre-season that some of their players came back underdone. They had 4 weeks, approximately, less pre-season training because they made it to the grand final. So Adelaide would be questioning right now the preparation of some of their players, because over the last 2 years they've had one of the better injury records in the game.
Yeah, a bit of a surprise that we've seen another hamstring come out of the Crows. We'll continue to watch it. Officially, they're saying hamstring awareness as we record right now. Let's take a look now at Port Adelaide. I'll tell you what, it's been, as a Port Adelaide great, mate, you must have been a bit stressed out about the horror week that it's been. We've had the Sam Powell-Pepper investigation, we've had the Todd Marshall family tragedy, and we've had Hamish Hartlett's ACL. Like, what a combination for Ken Hinkley to deal with over the course of a week.
And for the club as well. There's probably a couple more that we didn't even put in, some crowd behaviour issues as well. You know, there's a war with the network and the AFL going on at the moment behind the scenes in relation to Sam Powell-Pepper. So it was one of those wins where it was genuinely backs against the wall against a pretty good North Melbourne side who are in good form. Port Adelaide don't play well at Etihad Stadium, so that is a character-defining win without a ruckman who they're hoping they'll get back next week, as Ken Hinkley said after the game. So it sets them up. They're in a good spot, 4-2. Guess the bad news was Chad Wingard.
Yeah, absolutely. Paddy Ryder, as you say, expected back next week, but Chad Wingard won't be there because we have confirmation that he has suffered a hamstring injury. This is a blow. It's his left hamstring. He's had some trouble with his right hamstring in the past. If you look at his vision for MLC, he's a huge loss, isn't he?
It's a bizarre incident because you could see him grab his hammy when he marked the footy, yet he's gone back and taken the kick, and then he's grabbed at the hammy straight after he kicked the goal, or he's run off. So you'd have to question Chad as to what he was thinking. If you felt your hammy go, it's on your kicking leg. Why didn't he leave the ground? Why did he go back and take his shot for goal? And did that potentially make the hamstring injury worse? And Ken Hinkley has said he's going to miss some weeks. All
right, let's give Port Adelaide fans something positive. Did win the game after all, and your Saturday star comes from this match.
Oh, I love this guy. Now, he flies under the radar because Robbie Gray gets all the attention. This is the other Gray, but he's turned himself into a very good AFL player. He does this and he gives you effort, he gives you pressure in the forward line, and today he got his reward with 4 goals. Very inaccurate in front of goal last year, Sam Gray, but he certainly improved that area of his game, and he was my Saturday star.
All right, now let's turn our attention to the Queensland team, the Brisbane Lions. All is not well in the Queensland capital, and today we're highlighting Dane Zorko, who really is in the doldrums.
Yeah, well, he's the best player, and this is the return on an All-Australian year last year, 2017. You can see his numbers, they're plain to see, and most concerningly is the metres gained stat there. That's where he's so dangerous, and that's what the better players do. Well, halve that this year. He hasn't had over 20 disposals. His marks are down, and clearly his goals are down. So a bit of that is because he's been targeted from the opposition, as we saw from Miller last week from Gold Coast. But he's got a question, is he working hard enough? What was his preparation like in the pre-season? And why is a player that talented returning those numbers? It's not good enough.
He's arguably so desperate right now that he's nicking goals from his teammates. This is what happened at Spotless Stadium. as we look at Charlie Cameron. It seems like it was Charlie Cameron's goal, but in the end it was awarded to Dane Zorko.
Yeah, this is the angle that shows it the best. A clear goal from Charlie Cameron, you say, but slow it down, and it's actually impossible, I think, to see who kicks this goal. But Zorko, he's battling, so we may as well give it to him.
It's almost a dead heat in horse racing parlance. Anyway, let's give it to Zorko, and we do give the win to the Giants. Now, back to Friday night, there is a situation at the Carlton Football Club that is seriously now on the verge of a crisis, and even their normally very positive coach, Brendan Bolton, is struggling to sugarcoat it.
No, I'm concerned. I think you would have heard what I just said at the start. We're frustrated. Yeah. We're feeling it, and it hurts. So we are concerned about not winning. All I'm saying is there's a reality we've gone through a rebuild. Hopefully by the halfway mark, we have got a win or two. I'm not going to put a figure on it just now.
Hopefully by the halfway mark, we've got a win or two. So let's take a look at Carlton's road ahead, and can we find a win before the bye?
No, I can't see whoever they were playing a win there. Right now, you wouldn't give them a win against anyone. But that there, the next 5 weeks, is as tough as anyone in the competition. And I fear for what could happen at Carlton if they get a drubbing this week in Adelaide against the red-hot Adelaide Footy Club. That'll make them 0-7. It's already been the worst start for the Carlton in their history. They haven't kicked over 100 points in 37 weeks. And if they get smacked by the Crows next week, I just wonder whether the board might act a little bit more prematurely than they would have expected.
Well, they've got a history, haven't they, Carlton? So we have to ask the question, and we know that Brendan Bolton's on this rolling contract, not on a fixed-term contract, but do you think that his position is going to come under question in the coming weeks if they don't get a win by the bye?
I think it has to. He's a likeable guy, and he's got an infectious smile. We love hearing him talk about footy, but we judge coaches on win-loss. Now, he's 13-37 in his time at Carlton. That's 13 wins, 37 losses. Now, you can't see them winning against Adelaide this week, so that'll be 13-38. Not too many coaches survive that sort of record. All
right, let's turn to the ladder now as we wrap up this edition of the round so far. The Giants are on the top of the table. Richmond can overtake them potentially as we scroll down. The two Adelaide teams featuring prominently at the moment, and we've got the Saints languishing down there with Brisbane and Carlton both still winless.
Yeah, and the massive game still to come, isn't there?
Huge games.
On Sunday, so much to play out. So can't wait for the Essendon and Melbourne game. Clearly that gets us underway tomorrow. That's the early game. Then what about the rest of the round? Collingwood taking on Richmond off a shortened break, certainly, for those two sides. And then the massive derby out west. Don't know which way this one is going. There's been a bit of controversy over the medal over there during the week. So 3 cracking games, the 3 matches of the round we've got in front of us tomorrow. Can't wait.
One more thing before we go. Of course, this time last week we spent a lot of time talking about you and the Duck Wayne Carey, but you've made peace today at the Cattery.
There it is. Yeah, no, we caught up, shook hands, had a laugh about the proceedings that went on last week, and I think we've got thick skin, as we said last week, and move on, and it's not going to be the last one. One of us has a strong opinion.
A week is a long time in footy, hey, Kane? Thanks for that. We'll catch you soon. Kane Corns with us. Thank you for watching the round so far.